topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good morning, listeners. So thrilled to be here with you. So, folks, it's a beautiful morning and just excited. So for those of you who have got our books, thank you. And for those who may be thinking, should I get it or not? Here's what I'm going to tell you. Any of our books, The Entrepreneur's Garden, especially if you're a business owner or if expert to influencer, regardless whether you're in the corporate world, professional, or if you're thinking of influencing anybody, those two are the books for you. And the best part is that when you get your copies, you are becoming part of something bigger because we are donating a portion of the profits to entrepreneurs impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. So folks, and also one more call to action, as you'll know, can you share 1 hour of your time, especially as the holidays are coming up? Not only during the holiday times, but throughout the year. Just 1 hour a month. Think about it. If you give 1 hour a month, no strings attached, whoever you want to give to, think about it. Even if 100 million people just in the US alone, go for it. It's 100 million hours in just helping others and being a good human being. So today we are going to welcome Erin Snyder. She is a seminar leader for Landmark. She's a personal and professional growth trainer, and the company has had more than 3 million people use its programs to cause breakthroughs in their personal lives and communities. So folks, let's welcome Erin Snyder.
Hi, Divya.
Welcome, Erin.
Thank you very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So we are going to begin at the beginning. Do you recall a remarkable moment from your childhood?
Oh my gosh, a remarkable moment from my childhood. I would say probably one of the most remarkable moments I had is when I stepped up on the podium and I just won the national championship for gymnastics. And it was one of those moments where you just, it's like surreal. You can't even imagine that that's happening. And what just happened over the last few hours that I was able to actually accomplish that. And I remember standing up there and thinking to myself, wow, I mean, you can't even place it. Everything just stops. And I looked around at my teammates and a few of them had placed, second, third place. And it really was one of those peak experiences of my childhood, of my life.
And how old were you then?
I think I was about 13, 14 years old. Yeah, it was amazing.
And I'm sure a lot of hard work went into it. So tell us more about when did you start gymnastics and how long did you train before you got into that stadium?
Oh, it was, I think I started gymnastics in preschool. And, they had the little tumblers that you jump onto and, you do the little bit of tricks for your parents when they come and your families, right? And you can demonstrate that you jumped over the red and yellow. I think it was a red and yellow ball that you can like go over, and that whole thing. That's when I started out, and I begged my mother to let me do gymnastics because she was very worried that I would hurt myself. And I begged them and begged them and begged them until they finally let me do it. And hours went into every day training, practicing at least 5 days a week. And it was the most phenomenal experience to be somebody who could, I don't know how to express it, but train yourself that way to where, every competition, I used to not be very good when I was very, very young. And I moved up very fast through the different levels because I was highly disciplined at training, developing myself, doing what my coach said to do. And every time I did that, it worked. And I could learn new tricks and new moves and different things. I also had a background with ballet and a few other types of, movement that allowed for me to be able to do what I did. Very involved in musical theater, and all of that came together very powerfully. But before that national championship, it was hours upon hours upon hours of training and a season full of competition. But it definitely was not a foregone conclusion that was going to happen. I think I was more shocked than anybody else. And it just all really came together very powerfully that day.
So you said something. You said that, mom was worried that you may get hurt. But here's the thing that, if you don't get hurt or if you don't fall, that you're not going to learn that
Yes.
there is something beyond that. And there are so many young moms that I've seen, they're so scared about letting their babies go or kids go. What would you tell them?
Oh, I can empathize. I've got compassion for it. And I think that there is definitely being responsible for who you're putting your child in the hands of, but the trained professionals of the coaches and the people in the different gymnastics programs or whatever that people want to be doing, if your child is really committed to it and you vetted it out, you got to take that risk in service of what the child wants. I think you just got to. And of course, parents have to be able to be responsible for their own mental health. It can be very, disconcerting to know that your child's going to be in the hands of somebody else. I think my mom and my father were both at every practice, every meet, even though I had 4 siblings that had very busy young lives also, mainly because they just wanted to be there in case anything did happen. And if there's a parent out there and their child really has a dream, man, you kind of got to let them go for it. You just got to, and do what you can to support it and make sure that you're being as responsible as possible for it so that they don't get hurt as much, and it happens.
You said it. And I like what you shared that, having that empathy and compassion for these parents. And one thing that you really hit upon is that you wanted to do it and your parents were extremely supportive of it. And that's the
Yes.
thing. Unless you provide exposure to your child to different things, they're not going to know what's their dream or what they're passionate about. So in the beginning, it's important that you provide exposure. And I can share that as a parent. It's not easy. It's
Yeah.
actually extremely hard. And yet, unless you let them go, you don't see them fall like, what happened here? At the same token, you don't see their accomplishments either and see them develop as human beings, because ultimately they will be growing into those independent adults that need to tend to themselves. So
Yes.
no,
Very good. Yeah, absolutely.
so as you moved through your childhood and high school, what were your other interests?
Oh my gosh, Divya. I was one of those precocious, I'm going to get into everything children. I was in community theater, loved community theater, musical theater. I was the only girl in the boys' baseball league. I played baseball, basketball, soccer. I love gymnastics, of course, ballet, tap, jazz, point, piano. My mom made me do piano lessons, and I hated that, but I would do it every week because she asked me to. And beyond sports and beyond different types of extracurriculars like that, I was very involved in golf for my school. I was very involved in bowling. I just did sports upon sports upon sports. I also was involved in a lot of clubs. I was one of those people at school that never really settled down. And middle school to high school, I was, and I think I was in 5 different clubs. I was in the sports teams for school. Whatever I could do to be involved, I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, may I ask you a personal
Very
question?
busy time of life.
Yes, yes. And would you be okay if I asked you a personal question?
Sure.
Sometimes kids of that age, and the reason I'm shining light on our youth and kids is because that I'm seeing that due to pandemic, there has been a tremendous toll on the mental health of not only the younger generation, but throughout everybody. I would say that practically everybody has experienced some form of burnout, or most of the people have experienced that. So it's important to kind of shed light on that. So when you were in high school and when you were just, or for that matter, from your experience or what you may have seen, is that the youngsters want to get involved in a lot of things because they feel like they don't want to miss out on things. Was that one of the reasons for you, or was it just that you were just gregarious, had a ton of energy, and just wanted to be involved?
Gosh, that's a great question. I think for me, I had a pretty healthy drive to participate. I had a lot of passions about movements and different things that I thought should be righted. We had a pageant in our school for the guys. We called it Mr. Venice, but we didn't have one for the women. And I thought that was not okay. So I spent the next 6 months, 9 months of my life creating that to be something that happened. And I really had this kind of drive as a young person to get as involved as much as possible. And at times to burnout, for sure. My mom, there was times she's, honey, just rest. You really don't have to take on everything. And I was like, yeah, but I really do need to. And for me, it was very important to be involved that way. And I think for kids today, they're like, I love that you're speaking to this, because it's important to see what's the motivating factor behind it. I think it's whatever level of involvement that kids want to have. I was very involved in a project at the time in Florida. The Truth Campaign was happening, and I founded a chapter of SWAT, Students Working Against Tobacco. Why? Because I thought it was an important issue to be addressed with, the youthful generation, that they not be influenced by previous generations and the marketing of the tobacco industry. So there was a lot of causes that I saw that were worthy causes to get involved with. And I think for children, when you give them the opportunity to step up, they really do. And if the background motivator for that is something that they see they want to have alter in the world, I'd say let them go for it. And as much as they want to. And if they burn out, they burn out. They're going to learn and discover something new from that too.
I agree. Let them explore life. And
Yeah.
so one of the things that I have seen in my coaching experience is that a lot of parents, including our generation, has been some form or shape hovering parents or helicopter parents, so they're called. And what I'm finding is that we are somehow taking away some of the things from the generation about just that curiosity. allowing them the curiosity to explore life, allowing them to understand that failure is feedback. Failure is something, when you get the feedback from your failure, it becomes the feed forward.
Yes.
So just wanted to see what was your experience like around it.
Yeah, absolutely, Divya. I think there's a lot in our culture of people wanting to avoid the risk of failure, and they don't have a relationship to failure as it is feedback. They have a relationship to failure as it's not an option. And if I'm going to fail, or I have a sense of I might fail, I shouldn't do that. I should stick to what I'm good at. And it limits the range in which people actually experience life. I mean, if you're somebody who you've got this passion and you're not going to risk yourself in service of that passion, automatically you're going to limit the range in which you experience living, and you'll settle out for something of what's called fine. Yeah, it's fine. I'll stick to what I'm good at. In the new year, when I make my New Year's resolutions, I'll only make the resolutions I think I can fulfill on. And then what ends up happening is people limit the range in which they experience life. And you and I are criminals with this, because it really has become the accepted norm in our culture to stick to what we're good at, not do the things that we're not good at. And it has a very limiting nature, because then you and I aren't developing, aren't growing, aren't expanding our capacity to really be in life. And that's something, I think that has been through generation upon generation become an accepted norm.
Absolutely. So as you moved through your high school, what did you focus on, either in your higher education or wherever your career led in your early 20s?
Yeah. When I got into college, I went to a university where I really got invested in physical fitness training. And I took a little bit of a break freshman year of college. And after, all of the extracurriculars. And then sophomore year of college, I really said, you know what, I'm back in the game. And I went into ROTC, um, uh, and for the Air Force, right? And I also picked up golf again. I got involved in a sorority. I did all those things that people say that you should do in college. And I learned a lot in terms of my own, what I actually really loved and what I didn't love, and what I should be taking on, and, just enjoying the experience of a big university. And that was really how I spent my college years. ROTC with the Air Force, developing myself and the leadership skills that I could develop from there. It was really an incredible experience.
Yes, no, that's fantastic. And when did your life lead you after that?
When did it lead me up to that?
Yeah, where did your life take you after that?
Oh, after that, well, I commissioned into the Air Force, spent some time in the Air Force. And then right after the Air Force, I was living in Florida. I moved down to Miami to follow a love, and kind of took root there. And from there, I really started getting interested in what my 20s were going to look like, right? And what I was going to be doing with my life. That was actually when I did the course, the Landmark Forum. I got a lot of clarity for myself in terms of what I wanted my life to really look like, distinct from what I maybe was born into that I considered I should be doing with my life, which for me, in my case, was going to go be a lawyer like my father. And after I did the Landmark Forum, I really actually discovered for myself what I wanted to design, and started doing that. And in my 20s, I went after a career in auto financing. I opened up, started to do artwork, started to really delve into the things that I wanted to create for myself, including relationships, which I'd never been in prior to, my Landmark Forum after the Air Force. I really hadn't been in relationships. And that was really an exciting time, really an exciting time.
So, Erin, first of all, I would like to thank you from my heart for your services because, you know, you're our heroes. Anybody who goes there and puts their lives on the line, it's eternally grateful to you.
Hmm.
And then, secondly, you said something very nice is that designing your own life. So, let me kind of like go back to that fear factor. We have talked about there's a lot of fear, and of course, it's very natural to have fear because the way our brains are designed, we are scouting the environment if there is any threat. So, brain is designed to scout for fear, and fear is very, very healthy. Now, that said, sometimes fear can overtake people's lives. So, how can people handle fear based on your experience?
Well, with fear, exactly the way you said it is it can be gripping for people. I'll say it a different way, right? And
Hmm.
mostly we limit our experience of fear by downsizing the risk. So as long as I downsize the risk, I don't ever have to deal with the confront of fear. And it's a very comfortable way to go through life. It's what is at the source of what we call a fine life. So you and I go through life and we're going to avoid the risk of fear. And then all of a sudden now it's fine. It's not really the way we have it, but it's fine. And it's what I speak a little bit about in terms of, you and I, if you go through and you ask the people in your life, how are you doing? They're automatically going to say, fine. How's work going? Fine. How's your marriage going? Fine. How's that diet plan going? Yeah, it's all fine. It's always fine for people. But what people don't realize is that fine life is devoid of any real risk and therefore devoid of any real experience of living to the fullest. And so one of the things that, if you look into your life and if the viewers and the people listening really do look into your life, where have you settled for fine? Where have you settled for your marriage being, hey, it's good enough. It's comfortable. And if you could take that from fine to something of your design, it's going to require a bit of risk. It's going to require courage for you to even say to yourself, okay, it's not really the way I'd have it go. It's not really the way that I would design my life for myself. And if you had the courage to say that, that's the beginning to take something from being fine to something that could be extraordinary, something of your design, like a life that you're the author of. Now, I know that that's a little bit of a like right there, what you said about the risk, see, and the fear of failure. Yeah, it's risky. If I want to jump off of a high dive, I'm going to sit up there on that high dive and I'm going to look down and it's going to seem like a great idea. And then once I get up on that high dive, Divya, it's going to be like a horrible idea. I'm going to jump off this high dive. This is like 30 feet up in the air. Why would I do that? But as soon as you jump, your experience of being in life is altered. And all of a sudden you're like, why was that such a big deal? And you had such a blast. And then you're the one jumping down off that high dive another 10 times because you just experienced the freedom that comes from risking yourself that way.
Absolutely. So, Erin, do you have any stories in your personal life when you were just kind of standing there on that diving board? And I'm not talking about like literally on a swimming pool diving board, but on a diving board to an opportunity in life where you're just kind of standing there, you're on that brink of it and thinking, should I take this risk or not?
Absolutely. One of those was in my career. So like I said earlier, one of the things that it really was for me in my experience, I should go to be a lawyer like my father.
Mm-hmm.
He was a very successful attorney and very well known, well established, president of the Rotary Club. And president of the Little League. My father was a very established man in our community. And I just knew growing up, that's what I should be doing. And I should go to law school. I should take over my father's law firm. That's really what I should be doing. And when you have that kind of experience, that you really need to be doing something that your parents did or something they want you to do. Well, my father never even said he wanted me to do that. It was all the pressure I put on myself. But when I did the course that I did back in 2005, and I got this clarity of what I wanted my life to look like, I had no idea how to actually put that into action. But I did go online and I started applying for jobs. And I started looking at careers that were interesting for me. And I actually applied for this career that I had no training, like none. And I literally said to myself, you're crazy. You don't have any training for this. It's working from home. It's a very good income. You're not the person for this. This is something for people who have a lot of training, people that have been groomed for this. And it said that it required experience. And I said to myself, I was like, you know what? What the heck do I have to lose? And I had one of those moments of I'm just going to go for it. And I did. I clicked the send button and I got called for an interview. I couldn't believe they were going to interview me, first of all. And I remember going to this interview and I remember just seeing these streams and streams of people. By the way, I knew they all had experience, right? I had none. And I had one of those moments of, you know what? I'm somebody who just gotten out of the Air Force. I had a lot of debt that I was dealing with, and I wasn't making an income at the time. And I had this experience of myself of I'm really not this person that should be even going for this. And I almost quit. I almost sold out. I almost went right back to my car right in that moment. And then I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going for it. And I remember sitting there in that interview and kind of like thinking to myself, who is this person that's interviewing right now? I didn't even recognize myself. And it was remarkable what was there because I think there was like 100 applicants for that job that had experience. I didn't have any, and I landed it. And when they called and told me that I got the job, it was one of those moments of the experience of yourself. Like you actually can do anything if you put your mind to it and you're willing to put your butt on the line for it. You actually can accomplish way bigger things than what you think yourself capable of. And that was one of those moments for me where it kind of was an oh crap moment. And those are the moments that we never get over. Even if we fail, aren't those the moments we never get over? Because we actually risked ourselves fully. And, you could look in relationship for people, or you could look anywhere in life that's important. Those are the moments that count.
Mm-hmm. And you said it that you never forget those, because what you've done that is there is that limit when we talk about leveling up, that there is always that next level. And when you push those limits, you're stepping out of that comfort zone. And when you step out of that comfort zone, you find there is a whole different landscape, not only to experience, but to live in. And as you talked about the range of experience, I want to share a story of a young man I had been coaching. So this gentleman, he was fresh out of college and he was, gosh, I cannot go for this big company interview. I've never had any interview. And what am I going to do? All these questions and doubts, and even to a point where I could recognize that he was experiencing imposter syndrome. And I said, okay, you don't have to go. Why don't you just go for experience purposes? Forget about getting the job. You're fresh out of college. Unless you get experience of taking interviews, you're never going to learn. And it was amazing, just that click. It was that breakthrough moment for him. And he's like, yeah, I can just go. And it was almost like this veil of dark clouds lifted from him.
Without all the pressure. Yeah.
Without all the pressure. And there had been 250 applicants. He went through a couple of rounds of interview and he's like, oh, I'm in the second round. I'm in the third round. And then when he got the job, he's like, I don't know how I got it. And sometimes we are so focused on the outcome that we forget the process. And what
Yeah.
I've found is that when you are in the process, yes, you will enjoy the outcome. Of course, we are all going for the results. But if we enjoy the process, sometimes what I've found is that your experience not only sharpens, the colors brighten, but also the outcome just kind of happens on its own.
Hmm. Yeah. It's great. Just great. And it's a really good, um, for people to be in the world. It's one of the things we distinguish in our programs, Divya, with people is they have all these considerations that get in the way. What if this? What if that? What are they going to say? What are they going to think? How is this going to go? What am I going to, if I really say what I want to have, how is my partner going to respond? If I really go after this job, how are they going to view me? What if I don't make it? What if I do fail? How am I going to look to my friends? And inside of all of that, like you said, it's very outcome driven to where we don't experience the actual experience of being in life, and we'll settle out for what's called a fine life, in
Mhm.
service of making sure that we keep our image intact, making sure that we don't disappoint others, making sure we don't disappoint ourselves. And it's not a very fulfilling way to live. And has become kind of the standard or the norm for people. So what you shared with that young man, I mean, geez, just stepping outside of that, risking himself that way. Even if he hadn't gotten it, it would be the experience of being in life that he wouldn't have had otherwise. Really powerful. And, I know that we talked briefly on what that is inside of our culture. This avoidance of risk. You and I really have become people who make it okay for a fine life to happen. And
Mhm.
there's what we call the 3 steps to taking it from fine to your design. And one of those steps is, like I said, to have the courage to actually say what there is that's not really the way that you love for it to be. What is it actually that you do want? And having the courage to say that something's not quite at the level of satisfaction the way that you'd want it to. That's the first step. And for a lot of people, that first step is where the risk is, because you and I will settle to have it be something that we can live with, as long as we're not at a risk of failing or compromising what we think we want in the long run.
Right. So you talked about risks and that first step being courage. And I want to take our conversation back to what you had mentioned earlier. It was about considerations, that people have those considerations. So, can you share with us what did you mean by those considerations and how are those related with that self image? And this is the image, like that is at the crux of the matter.
Yes. Happens to be the society we live in, right? It's all about our
Hmm.
image and making sure that it's intact and we do the right things and make sure we look the right way, make sure that we are in the right kind of career. We're making the right kind of money. We're doing the right kind of things. We're in the right kind of marriage with the right kind of family. And the courage to actually be somebody who risks your image is something that has you and I end up being a little bit tenuous. And like I said, the considerations that are there. See, what if it doesn't turn out and then I look stupid? It's a big one for people. What
It
if
is.
I really risk myself in my relationship and I say, hey, I'm not satisfied with this aspect of our relationship? What if I end up looking like an idiot? What if they end up saying, that's just foolish? Why would you even say that you want that? What if I say I want to start this new career and the people in my life would say, oh my God, you want to start a new business or a new career? I mean, why would you risk your current one? There's those kind of risks that are there, that you and I have these considerations about how we'll be viewed. And then if you've got a consideration of how you'll be viewed, that's usually exactly the place that you want to go. That's exactly the place you want to risk yourself, Because if you are going to hold out on what's important to you in order to look good, in order to make sure that you're acceptable and your image is intact, that's exactly what leads to what's called this fine life, that then ends up leading to exactly what people die with, a ton of regret. And we don't like to think that way. We don't like to think that way because we're going to take that risk later. But if you look at it, it's 2022 coming up here around the corner. And if you look at 2021, you look at 2020, you look at this couple years of the pandemic, you look before that. Well, I want to know when later is coming. And later is not actually happening right now. And we'll put it off inside of our considerations. And the first step, you got to have the courage to say it's not really the way you'd want it to be, even in the face of those considerations of what people might think of you.
Mm-hmm. So what's the next step?
Well, the next step is you really got to be generous with yourself. Give yourself the permission to create a life that you would want to have. See, it's so normal in our culture for people to go through life saying everything's fine. But you don't actually have to accept that. You can transcend all of that old resignation and create something new. You can transcend what goes against the grain of the norm of people. And you can actually be generous with yourself and stand for what is important to you. And that starts to be, for people, very empowering, because then you're able to actually step out into the risk and have some compassion. It's kind of like what you said with that gentleman. Hey, maybe it's not about the outcome. Maybe it's about you just going for the experience of this. And then you know what? If you could actually step out and be generous with yourself and give yourself compassion, and at the same time say, you know what? I'm not going to sell out for this fine life. I'm going for it. That's the next step in actually being able to design a life that you love, one that you would create, and that one that would fulfill you.
So I want to ask you a tough question here, because what happens is, in the quest of being generous with yourself, so many times people think that they're being compassionate with themselves, and yet at the same token, they are very harsh with other people. So
Yes.
Would you agree that it's important to be that when you're being generous with yourself, it's very critical to be cognizant that you're being generous with others as well at the same time?
Yeah, really good what you brought up about that, because that is something. When I say be generous with yourself, I don't necessarily mean it in the way that people hear it, of being self-serving that way. There is an aspect of, when I take care of myself and I go after what I'm passionate about, right? Then there's a level to which there could be people not included in that endeavor. If all of a sudden I'm a mother of 3, and all of a sudden I say, you know what, screw it, I'm going after my career. Hey, you can take care of the kids. Yeah, there's a way to be responsible for that in a way that works. But what I found is that when people are willing to get the truth told about where they're not going to settle anymore, and then they're actually willing to share with the people in their life what they actually are going to take a risk on, that for them is a big deal. The people in their life are very big and great at wanting to support that being realized, even if at first they're a little bit concerned about it. So what you said is important in terms of, here I am, I'm going to take a risk for myself and what I think could be important to my life. Well, there's other people included, and you're going to be that much more available if you're being somebody who's stepping out into the risk of your life. You're going to take on that career. You're going to start that business. It's going to make you that much more of, you could say, the embodiment of what other people could have in their own life. But if you're not willing to share in that with people, then it could leave people out. And that's not what you want. You want to be able to include the people in your life and what it is that you're taking a risk with. If you look at the people that go to the Olympics, you look at the people that really are going after these passions and dreams that they have, it's a whole family of support. It's a whole community of support. It takes a village for people to have what they need to be able to fulfill on those endeavors. And our culture has a lot of lone rangers. Do you know what I mean by lone ranger?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. And that's the reason, because what happens is that when people hear these statements, what you project and what's perceived are two different things. And that's the reason I brought it up, because I know that's exactly what you meant, is that taking everyone together. So a lot of people think that, you got to be a lone ranger. It's not about being a lone ranger. It's about being that rising tide that lifts all boats. So as
Yeah,
we kind of getting close to the end of it, I'd love for you to share the third step and how can people connect with you and about Landmark.
absolutely. Well, the third step, Divya, we went through the first two. First is if you're going to take your life from being fine to a life of your design, you got to have courage. You
Hmm.
got to find your courage to admit something's not really the way you want it to go. Like the way it's going is not really the way you want it. You got to have courage. Then second step is you got to be generous with yourself. You got to give yourself the permission to live a life that you love versus settling out for the norm of fine. And any place, if you wrote down a list of 5 areas of your life where you could see, okay, it's fine for me, it's not really the way I would design it, that's going to give you an access to immediately being able to take action on that area and start to have it be a match for what you want. Now, the third step is very important. Be willing to say it's possible. You got to be willing to create a new possibility in your life. In order to get the results you want, you got to be willing to say that it's possible. Those results could happen for you. And you standing there inside of that and actually saying, okay, these 5 areas of my life are not really the way I wanted them to be. Okay, it takes courage. Okay, now I got to be generous with myself. I got to be willing to, actually say I could go beyond the norm. And I got to be willing to say it's possible. I got to be willing to stand for the results I want to have. I got to be willing to share with the people in my life what I really want for myself and what's been displacing my actually going after it and what's important to me. And when I can share with the people in my life that way, all of a sudden the people in my life get involved in that endeavor. They want to partner with me in the weight loss program. They want to go to the gym with me, or they want to partner with me in learning something new about our finances where we could risk ourselves, or they could partner with me in that diet plan. They could partner with me with my marriage. There's all kinds of different ways to be in action. If you're willing to say that it's not the way you want it to go, you got the courage to deal with that, and then actually be generous with yourself, and then be willing to say it's possible. You actually could take your life from being fine to one of your design, where all of a sudden what you say is important, the people around you are now partners in fulfilling on that with you.
Absolutely. Beautiful. So how could people connect with you, and do share a bit about Landmark?
Oh, people can come on to our website, landmarkworldwide.com. And we just celebrated 30 years. More than 3 million people, as you said at the beginning of the program, have participated in our programs. And when people do our programs, Divya, one of the major, it's not a linear process. It's really an experience that people never get over. It's a 3-day journey into your life and what's important to you. And on the other side of that, people come out with the benefits. The Harris Interactive did this survey of people who had participated in our programs over the course of 20 something years. And what benefit did they receive? And more than 96% of them said they had the benefit of peace of mind. They had the benefit of an expanded level of courage. They had the benefit of self-confidence was another major benefit. Expanded experience of happiness, fulfillment, satisfaction. Productivity was a big one. And a big one for people is their ability to express their love fully, not just for others, but for themselves. You notice we're kind of our own biggest critic. A lot of people, you don't need anybody else to tell you you're doing things wrong. You're like already there for it, criticizing yourself. And after that 3-day journey of the forum, and it ends up being, 3 days and an evening, people really come out of there with a sense of self that they hadn't seen possible, and really like back at the source of their life. And it really is an experience like no other for people. And that experience of accomplishment is really valuable for people to be in life, experiencing something beyond the norm of what people consider to be the status quo.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for joining us today, Erin.
Yeah.
And would you like
Great
to
to
share
meet you.
anywhere your personal information where people can connect with you?
Best way to get to me is through our website, landmarkworldwide.com. Yep. I definitely, I lead programs, 2-3 weeks a month for Landmark Worldwide, and what we're able to accomplish around the world even on Zoom is pretty remarkable. So the best way to get in touch with me is through that website.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us, Erin, and listeners, thank you. Without you, the show would not be possible. The show is for you. And as you all know, anytime, reach out to me with any stories, resources, so we can bring you those experts so that we can make your life better. We can enhance your life and enrich your life. Here to serve and support you. And last but not the least, thank you, Jason, for making the show possible. Well, until next time, be well and take care.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.